again here with Find Pigtails, and what we are going to do is kind of a follow-up on one of our last videos when I was showing our tools. I'm going to do kind of a basic crimp demo, and we'll do another video to this. It's a little more in depth. But today we'll use our basic crimp tool, and then we will use the little bit nicer one, quite a bit nicer actually. The strippers that we sell, we'll probably start doing these. These are kind of nice because it's an auto stripper, but you can actually set how far back you want it to go. When you're working on a car and you only have a few wires, it's not as big of a deal for us. If we're stripping a lot, then it's nice, but they are pretty awesome. And a lot of you might have sets like this. So what you can do, we'll start here. Of course, we all know we got our wire. This is some 16 gauge here that we use. And we try to change the color up on our wire size. That way we kind of can tell the difference. If you had 14 gauge to 16 gauge, not as bad, but 16 to 18 is kind of hard to tell. So we try to do like a gray, a little bit different color. So we do a gray 18 gauge, black 16 gauge. 22 gauge goes back to black because again, that's so small you won't really mix that up with the 16 gauge. But this is our 14 gauge here. This one I've already got the seals on. It's already been stripped. Not every pin, not every connector is going to be sealed. Some won't use seals at all, or they have built-in seals. The ones we'll make today would be the ones that will need seals. A couple things to keep in mind, of course. It's always going to be better to strip after you put a seal on. So what we're going to do here, take our seal, wire, slide it over. Kind of hard to show you here, but it'll push through. And these are usually pretty slick, and they have a little oil on them naturally from being made, and so they don't stick together, and so it slides over there pretty easy. But I usually push back about 1 inch. If I'm doing quite a few, I always do them in sets, so I would cut wire, put a bunch of seals on, then strip all of them. You don't do one full. You don't put the seal, then strip for each one individually. You're going to do a set of them, so it takes less time. But for this, I'll show you all here today. So we got our seal on. It's ready to go. Now, and I'll kind of give you an idea. This one's tool's all the way up. It's pretty good. It's probably 3/16 of an inch or so that you're going to be splicing back. Really, what's going to dictate it is the terminal. So after it's been stripped, bring your seal up right to the end there, and I'll see if I can show you here, because we only have, we have the specific little crimp area where it's actually going to grab onto the wire. Let me see if I can show y'all here, point to it a little bit better. So right in here, that's right where your wire needs to sit. In the back, that's what's going to grab onto our seal. So when I set it then in there, I can see that the wire's sticking through a little bit too far, so I kind of just pull it back a little bit. Right, I just want it sticking just barely past where it's going to crimp on the wire. Just a little bit past it, not too much, just a hair. So what we'll do here first, we'll use the little bit more basic tool, the starter tool that we've got that we talked about, like I said in that last video. And then you kind of just got to get comfortable with which one you're going to use. You can always start with one and then step it up. So what I think I'm going to do here is use the 20 to 18. That one actually, when I'm looking at that, looks like it's going to be pretty good. So what we will do, if you see, let me turn this over. In the jaws, it'll have one area, and that's at the top of it, here in the center portion. And it's going to have the way it's machined out, there's one little tab that kind of sticks down. It's very hard to see in there. But that actually is what's going to help to roll the metal here. And let me see if I can actually get this on camera pretty well. So I'm going to have to do it backwards from where the numbers are. But we will slide it through, and you kind of just do it flush right where the edge is that you're going to be crimping onto the tool. And I'm holding it all on the backside here. So we just run it down until it goes all the way down. And I'll show you. Now the seal's not done yet. This is just our wire. But as you can see, so right there, that crimp rolled it perfectly. So from here now, what we're going to want to do is the seal. And again, if you're doing multiple wires, I would do the crimp first, do a bunch of them, just knock out all the crimps, and come back and do the seals. When you're working on a car, you can pretty much just do these one at a time if you want. So from here, the like we were talking about before, the perfectly circular section is where your seals will go. So what we're going to do, we can start it, same deal. That cup is where the pin will sit, so we'll just kind of set it down in there where the seal is, and it's a little bit easier to do and show you here. Just like that, and it'll roll that right around it. So that's what you want it to look like. Now, one thing you can do is a pull test. You could always kind of hold it and pull it, make sure that wire's not going to pull out. Usually, if I'm doing a big set, I put them in a vise and kind of destroy one, but for you on a car, you're not going to want to do that. So you could always kind of carefully take your strippers, kind of hold it at the back of the pin just like that, and then you kind of pull it, and I'll pull it, and I don't feel it slipping. If I felt it slipping, I would just put a little bit of solder in here, just depending, or if you're able to go bigger wire size. Usually you can't because you're stuck with what's on the car. We are going to do a video kind of showing y'all that, the soldering of this if you ever have to, just for security reasons of it not pulling that wire out. But that is with the 16 gauge. Let's do the 14. Same procedure, just it's a little bit tighter and you'll know it when you're crimping down onto it. So we'll check our wire here. Let me show you again. So sticking just a little bit too far past it, so I pull the wire back, bring the seal up just where that wire barely sticks past. So what we'll do now, same thing, we can take this tool that we have, and since it's bigger wire, I'm actually going to use the 16 to 14 gauge, and we'll slide in there till it's just flush with that top edge. I don't know if you can actually see that there. And now I'm going to do that crimp. So then that's crimped. Again, seal. And you can use, on this one, I bet you we could use the smaller size, and you'll know because when you start to try it, it'll either work or it won't. But that one worked fine because the pin's still the same size. It's just a wire that's thicker, so it's really just on the crimp that's going to kind of have a little bit of difference. I can say that one's going to really hold tight because again, that's the same pin, just thicker wire. The one thing you got to watch out for is that it rolls it nicely. So like this one, I can see probably is a little bit loose, so you'd want to make sure that you kind of tighten that up. So what you can do is after you've done it, now I did that with the larger size, so what you could do, because it's already rolled and it might kind of close in a little tighter, but what we'll do here is we'll go one size down on that crimp tool and we'll squeeze that tight. So now you can see, and I'll show you the differences here. So that's our 16 to our 14 gauge if you look in there where it crimped around the wire. So not always ideal to have that little bit of a gap. As long as it's tight, which this one will be, then you're going to be okay. So as long as you can't pull that wire out. Again, not necessarily the most ideal, but if that's the wire size you have and that's the terminal you have, it will work. This one I would definitely solder something like this just to be safe, give you that peace of mind. The one cool thing, like with this tool, which is the nicer tool we've talked about, this one typically is going to give you a nicer roll to that crimp. So let's see here if I can kind of show you. We'll just use the 14 gauge. Alright, so again, make sure that wire is just barely past where you're going to crimp on it. So let me take a look here, and we're going to use B, and that's the cool thing, they give you the letters, so A, B for your seals, or A and C, excuse me, for your seals, B and D for the crimp. So like on this one, you start to learn, okay, B is your main letter you're going to use. See if I can kind of show y'all, but same deal, just flush with your edges. And we'll roll it. Now this one's kind of cool because it ratchets. So once that ratchet stops, it'll pop back open and you know you're done. You can go further, but you don't have to, and let me show y'all. So you'll be able to see. Now this one with the cheaper tool, I did twice. This one was one time with the nicer tool. So the nicer tool did this one, cheaper tool did this one, and so the bottom one's the nicer tool. And you can kind of see definitely not as good of a roll on the with the cheaper tool. So that another area where that better tool kind of comes in handy. So again, once you kind of get comfortable with the crimping, it's pretty basic. We'll do some more videos on it. The biggest thing is just check yourself. So, you know, what you can do if you order some terminals, order extra ones. do some tests till you get comfortable with it. And then once you've done one on a car, just check it. Always check your work. If you're soldering something, check your solder. You don't want cold solder joints. If you're crimping something, make sure that it's a nice, clean, tight roll on that crimp that's going to hold the wire really tight. If it's just kind of lays flat onto the wire whenever you do the crimp, that probably is not going to hold. I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of tension kind of sandwiching down onto it, but when it rolls, it actually kind of digs that metal into the wire, which is what really helps hold it. And the reason why I was saying have the wire go past just a little bit is, of course, if that kind of flares out just a hair, that's going to give you an extra little bit of security there, kind of holding onto that wire. And then, of course, you do have some without the seals. These pins are definitely designed for a seal. You can make it work without if you had to, but usually you're going to have the correct pin for that connector, so it'd be a little different. And so we'll show you all that in another video, show you the soldering on the pins, but this is just kind of a basic, quick breakdown of just very basic starting of the crimp procedure, and we'll show you some more next time.